The smoke hadn't even cleared from the Notre Dame fire about a week ago when three of France's richest men have already pledged to donate some $600 million to the cause of rebuilding the world famous cathedral. Now, let me make one thing clear real quick. I don't have no problem with anyone rebuilding a synagogue, a mosque, or a church because I believe that in their grand design, in their intentional design, churches, synagogues, and mosques were designed to help benefit mankind. And if we really truly understood the purpose of a church, a synagogue, or a mosque, then we would be a much better people because of it. Okay, so let me make one thing crystal clear. I have no problem with these billionaires pledging any amount of money to the rebuilding of Notre Dame. But what's the surprising part to me was that our president, Donald J. Trump, and yes, I use the word our president because whether you like it or not, or whether you voted for him or not, he is our president, also pledged millions of his own dollars to help rebuild Notre Dame. Now, again, I have no problem with Donald Trump using his money to rebuild Notre Dame. After all, he is a multi-billionaire. It's his money, and he can do whatever the hell he chooses to do with that money. If we want to take it and burn it up in a pile in the middle of Times Square, he can do that if he chooses to. It's his prerogative. But let me say this. I have a very big problem with someone from our own country donating their money to help somebody else from another country. And here's the problem that I have with it. It's a few things. Now listen to me very closely because I don't want to make it think that I'm being discriminatory or being hateful toward Donald Trump or anybody else for that matter. But let me give you a few things to think about. Here's the first thing. The Cathedral of Notre Dame in Paris is owned by the Roman Catholic Church. And again, I have no beef with anyone from the Catholic Church because I have many good friends that are Catholic. All right. But here's the thing. Let's understand, for those of y'all who don't understand the mechanisms of the Catholic Church as a whole is a very powerful organization in our world. In fact, they are a very rich organization. In fact, when I last checked, the net worth of the Roman Catholic Church is somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 15 billion dollars. That's billion with a B for those of y'all who flunked your first grade spelling classes. So, and the Catholic Church is one of the only self-sustaining, self-sufficient, self-governed organizations in the world. One of the few. There are not many churches in the United States that are self-governing as the Roman Catholic Church is. That's how they were able to sustain through scandals that would destroy the average business. In fact, if the Roman Catholic Church were a country, their the gross domestic product would be somewhere in the top 10, somewhere around our area. So the point I'm making by saying this is the fact that the Roman Catholic Church would have rebuilt Notre Dame, not only because of its historical significance, but just the fact that it belongs to the Catholic Church, they would have rebuilt it without the help of these billionaires. So that's the first problem I have with it. Here's the second problem. Okay, fine. No, Donald Trump wanted to say something about Notre Dame and the significance of it in our world, but here's the problem I have with him saying that about Notre Dame. He and his organization and his administration was basically silent when it came to the destruction of three historically black churches in St. Tammany Parish, Louisiana. Last week, a young teenage white supremacist, I'm not going to say what his age is because I don't know, but he was a teenager, by the way, was charged with 3 counts of arson for burning these 3 historical black churches. And considering the fact that these were historical black churches, I can pretty much guarantee you that the federal authorities are looking into this, and federal charges are more than likely pending. But the thing was, 3 historically black churches burnt to the ground over the last couple of months in that very same parish, and the Trump administration was basically silent. Nothing was said, nothing was mentioned, there was no significance of anything. And a matter of fact, unlike the Catholic Church, these churches are basically smaller churches that have very few members. So they can't just easily just rebuild their church like Notre Dame can. That's why GoFundMe pages are now being placed in order to help these churches to rebuild themselves. That's the second problem I have with Trump saying anything about Notre Dame. Here's the third problem. Third problem I have with Donald Trump saying something about Notre Dame is because that Donald Trump and his administration and practically half of Fox News had no problem chastising Colin Kaepernick and other NFL and NBA players for kneeling during the national anthem because, according to him, it was disrespectful to our veterans and to our military. Well, if the military and our veterans were such a priority to you, Mr. Trump, then why haven't you figured out a way to solve the problems of the more than 85,000 of our veterans who are currently living on our streets and under our bridges today? Oh, yeah, you'll probably run into some of them on your way to work, on your way to school, on your way to the store, because they're living under our bridges. They're living in cars. They're sitting in jails. Many of these veterans are Vietnam veterans who served in our war and served in our wars valiantly, but have traumas from those same wars. They have ended up with drug addictions, alcohol addictions, and some have even criminal records. The money you're going to give to Notre Dame could go a long way in helping more than these 85,000 plus veterans come up with a shred of dignity and some semblance of manhood, and, just the fact that they don't have to feel like they served our country for nothing, which is what they feel right now. So, and that money could go a long way towards that benefit. Here's another problem I have with Donald Trump donating to Notre Dame, and I'll spell it out in 5 letters. FLINT. That stands for Flint, Michigan, who now, almost 5 years to the day, still has no solution to deal with the contaminated water that they still suffer with. The donations have quit coming in, and now the nearly 150,000 citizens in Flint still have to deal with the fact that they have contaminated water. Even though they've cut off the Flint River, which was the source of the contamination, they still have to deal with the fact that they have to bathe, drink, and cook in water that contains, among other things, benzene, mercury, turpentine, and other things that are contaminating their water source. And if it corrodes pipes, which those chemicals will do, just imagine what it can do to a human body. Mr. Trump, if you're really concerned about making America great again, this is where it starts. You could help the 150,000 residents, many of them who are elderly and children, don't have to drink, bathe, and cook in contaminated water, or have to spend money that they don't really have to spend to buy bottled water or buy filters to fix the water source, which they still haven't figured out how to fix the problem yet. You know what I'm saying? These, among other things, are a reason why I have a problem with Donald Trump donating to the Notre Dame situation. But here's the problem that I have with choosing Donald Trump or picking on Donald Trump. Here's the problem that I have with him. I cannot properly chastise Donald Trump if I don't also chastise the black church as well. Oh, yeah, I'm calling you guys out. I'm talking about these big black mega churches with these big black mega pastors that are living in the lap of luxury at the expense of its members. Yes, that's right. I'm calling you out, T.D. Jakes. I'm calling you out, Wendell Scott. I'm calling you out, Joel Osteen, even though he's not black, but still he's a mega pastor. Then his church is practically 60% black anyway. You know what I'm saying? So I'm calling you out. Yeah, I'm calling you out, John Gray. Yeah, I'm calling you out, Creflo Dollar. I'm calling out all you pastors who haven't said anything about the St. Tammany thing either, or any other issue that the black community suffers with, for that matter. And since I'm on that, I'll go ahead and call you guys out too. And I'm talking about Jesse Jackson. I'm talking about you, Al Sharpton. I'm talking about you, Charles Rangel, Sheila Jackson Lee, Nancy Pelosi, Mike Schumacher. Yeah, I'm calling you guys out too. I'm calling you out also, Louis Farrakhan. You sit there and use your soapbox to complain about what the white man ain't doing and what the white man need to be doing. But what are you doing for the community? Hell, you can't even fix Chicago. So what you complaining about what Trump ain't doing and what this ain't doing? You can't even fix Chicago. They still killing people at the rate of dozens by the day. You ain't addressed that in your little soapbox, have you? No. You obviously have. Why? Because you don't care. None of you do. But keep in mind that in the next 18 months or less, half of you clowns are going to be jumping in our churches and synagogues and mosques, begging us to vote, go vote for your ignorant selves. But when y'all get in the office, you forget all about us. You know what I'm saying? And I know some of y'all have not liked what I said so far, and I don't care because it needs to be said, it needs to be addressed, because we need to call these wannabe, ain't never gonna be black leaders to task, because there's no reason why y'all could blame Donald Trump for what he does when we don't care. Why should they care for us when we don't care for us? You know what I'm saying? Why should they be concerned about the issues that benefit our communities when we aren't concerned about the issues that benefit our communities? And yeah, like I said, half of these clowns are going to be jumping in the buses and planes, jumping in our front of our pulpits and synagogues, begging us to go vote on certain days so that they can get them back into office. And it's not just the presidential election that we got to deal with. We got gubernatorial seats that are open, mayoral seats that are open, congressional seats that are open, senate seats that are open, city council seats that are open. And these very same people will run to our churches and promote a beautiful, flowery message. But then, what have they done for us in the meantime? Absolutely nothing. Our neighborhoods are the same as they were 50 years ago. Our communities are in the same mess, and we're dealing with the same issues, the same problems that we were dealing with 50 years ago before I was even born. Why is that? We put these people in the office, and we put them on the premise that they're going to try to fix the things that are going on in our communities. You know the reason why? Is because they get in these offices and they get fat and rich to forget about all of us. And the sad part is that we don't care about us either. Think about it. You know, I'm grateful for what the late Nipsey Hussle has done for the citizens of Compton, California. As the same thing, I'm grateful for what T.I. and what Killer Mike is doing in Atlanta, and what Slim Thug and Chamillionaire are doing in Houston. I'm grateful for these guys, and I think more people need to step up. Yeah, I'm talking about you athletes and actors and rappers and singers and dancers and all y'all that make money off of us when we go see your concerts and go see your films. What have you contributed? There's no way that I could sit here and properly criticize Donald Trump and his administration for their lack of concern for the black community when the people that have the authority to do something in the black community don't care either. I can't say nothing. I would be wrong for it. And all y'all sitting on y'all soapboxes and y'all pulpits, and y'all sit up there and y'all do all this dancing and huckabucking in the church every Sunday morning, getting all these donations. What are y'all doing to help benefit y'all's communities? The way I see it, the only thing y'all doing is padding up y'all's bank accounts and y'all retirement accounts while grandma and grandpa struggling to make ends meet, trying to rob Peter to pay Paul. You know, they can't even pay their light bills on time, but they faithful in their tithes and offerings. They faithful in that. Because they believe that things are going to get better when things ain't getting better. And the reason why is these pastors don't care about the people that they serve. So I can't get mad at Donald Trump for his lack of concern for the black community. Hell, I can't get mad at nobody in Washington, D.C. When we don't care about ourselves, how are we going to, if we don't love each other, if we don't respect each other, I've seen this with my own two eyes, and I'm just going to use it. You can take 20 Hispanic people from anywhere in Latin America. You put them in the same 2-bedroom house. You have 8 or 9 kids in the same house. You got 4, 5, 6 men in the house, 6 wives. Everybody in the house somehow is able to get along. You know what I'm saying? They work together. They may have 1 or 2 cars between them. They'll take one of them cars to help get the men to work. They use the other car to get the kids to school so that the ladies can work on getting the other stuff. You know what I'm saying? And everybody pools their resources together. You know what I'm saying? Year from now, 2 years from now, now you got now that one house is expanded to 2 and 3 houses. Now that one or two cars, you got a whole fleet full of cars. Now everybody's doing good and working together and repeating the process again. Why is that? Why is it that you can go to anywhere in the United States of America, and I don't care what city it is, you got thriving Asian communities. They got thriving businesses. They got homes work. They got their homes and they protect each other. You know what I'm saying? You go to the Hispanic community, the exact same thing. You go to the Pakistani community, to the African communities. You can go to any other ethnic group and you see thriving communities, thriving businesses, home ownership. Okay, you go to any other community and you see that. Why isn't that happening for the African American community? Why are African Americans benefiting from this? Is it because of just racism? No. Racism's been around. Racism is America's MO and has been its MO since its inception. See, we can't blame racism for the problem. Is it because the opportunities aren't there for us as it is for other people? No. The same opportunities for them, same opportunities for us. The same doors are available to them, the same doors are available to us. I'm going to tell you the reason why. The reason why everybody else is moving ahead of us and why we're so behind is because of one reason and one reason only. It's because the other groups that I aforementioned learned the value of cooperation rather than competition. You know, when they realize that only one captain needs to be running the ship and everybody else work to help the captain, we can get someplace. But when you got 50 different captains trying to command the ship, we ain't going no damn place. It's like the proverbial hamster in the wheel. You're going in perpetual motion, but you ain't going nowhere. And that's what the problem with black folks since, I'll say, 1964, 1965. That's been our problem and still is our problem. And I know, I'm going to say this, and I know people are not going to agree with this either, and I don't care, but it's the truth. And I said this before, and even to my own family members, and most of them don't even agree with it. But I'm going to be honest with you. Integration has been the hurt of the black community. Integration hurt us more than it helped us. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you exactly the reason why. It's because, okay, yeah, we wanted so badly to be a part of the American experience. We all wanted to be a part of the American dream. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you have to understand, up until 1965, the words in the Constitution, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, did not apply to the African-American slave. Prior to 1964, 1965, didn't apply to us. The protections of the Constitution did not apply to the African-American slave. And truthfully, up until 1924, they didn't apply to females either. It was written for the Anglo-Saxon male. It was written primarily, they didn't apply to the American Indian. They did not apply to the immigrants. They did not apply to women. They did not apply to the slave. Read up your history. It proves it. And the reason why I say these things is because prior to 1964, you got to remember, we had thriving communities and businesses and home ownership, even in the midst of Jim Crow, even in the midst of racism, even in the midst of Plessy versus Ferguson, which brought in the Jim Crow thing in the first place, even with the Ku Klux Klan, we were building thriving businesses, thriving communities. Our schools were producing top-notch doctors, lawyers, people that were teachers and preachers. We were producing this even in the midst of racism. That's right. We were producing this. Look up Black Wall Street. Google Black Wall Street. You'll see that in Greenwood, Oklahoma, which is right outside of Tulsa, they built a thriving community even within racism. I mean, black folks had an airport that even the white community didn't have at that time. We're talking about the early 1900s. Black folks had houses with running water and toilets. Even the white people in that time didn't have that. They even had another Black Wall Street in the South, way up there in South Carolina. You can Google this stuff. It's there. There were black business owners. Yes, there were black We were producing black doctors and black lawyers that were doing great things in our community, thriving schools, thriving churches. Our communities were being protected by our very own, even in the midst of Jim Crow. You know what I'm saying? Then once Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which basically opened the doors wide that discrimination in public places was no longer allowed, that you couldn't be discriminated in public restaurants, stores, churches, whatever. It blew the gates open. But then guess what we did? We ran away from our own businesses and jumped to theirs. We abandoned our stores, we abandoned our schools, we abandoned our churches. So you look at it now to the point of, whereas the point of prior to the Civil Rights Bill, black folks were graduating at a 100% rate. We're graduating now at about a 64 to 65% rate. Whereas whites are graduating at 85% and Asians are graduating at 93%. There was no GED program. That was a product of the Great Society movement that Lyndon Baines Johnson created in 1960, which we also created Head Start as well. But black people were graduating. There was a point in time prior to this, you didn't need a college education to survive. You could go down there and work at the local factory where your father worked, where your grandfather make a good living, be able to sustain your household. And when it was time to retire, you had finance and wherewithal to be able to retire and not have to worry about nothing. Speaking of retirement, that was another thing I could say that Donald Trump could have done instead of donating to Notre Dame. Fix the broken Social Security Administration. Yes, I said the word broken because that's exactly what Social Security is. Broken. It's a broken system that's destroyed. When Franklin Delano Roosevelt created Social Security in 1935, he intended to use Social Security as a means of helping those people who worked and people that contributed into the Social Security Administration so that when it was time for them to retire at 65, they can enjoy their golden years in peace. That's not the case anymore. The Social Security Administration has been used for every pet project since World War II, and it's documented. Now they don't barely have enough money to pay the nearly 70 million seniors that are actually eligible for Social Security. And guess what? If that's the case now, I feel bad for when my generation ends up eligible for Social Security. And guess what? The first members of Generation X that will be Social Security eligible will be in 2030. 11 years from now. Think about that. 11 years from now, the first members of Generation X will be Social Security eligible. And if that's the case, I feel bad for my generation and the generation that follow it because we might not even have a Social Security Administration by then. That could be a thing to fix too, Mr. Trump, if you thought about it. But it all comes back to us. It all comes back to us. We cannot expect others to respect us when we don't respect us. We cannot expect others to love us when we don't love us. I mean, you go in black communities today, we'll walk in a black community and people will mean mug you and look at you with disdain and scorn. But then you go into other communities, everybody all proper and talking nice. How you doing, sir? How's everything going? We don't even speak to each other when we see each other down the street. We don't shake each other's hands. We don't acknowledge each other. We can speak to somebody and we don't even acknowledge it. That's how much hatred and disdain that we have for one another. We don't love ourselves, but we expect other people to love us. We don't have no care and concern for each other. They can see somebody go in there and rob their grandmama, 99 years old, go rob her with teeth, beat her to a bloody pulp. Don't say nothing. Let's charge her to the game. Don't snitch. Don't tell the police. We don't care about each other, guys. We don't love each other. That's why we've become irrelevant now as a people. And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to close with this thought. When Donald Trump ran in 2016 for the presidency, he made a statement that people were in a hell of an uproar of. He told the black voters, the black community, what in the hell do you have to lose? And people thought that was the most racist statement of all time. But the sad part is he was telling the truth. Because we don't have anything to lose. Because we don't have anything to begin with. Because we don't love each other. Because we don't support each other. Because we don't help each other. We don't have anything. In the black community today, we don't own our own homes. Less than 10% of African American people own their own homes, where it was way quadruple numbers higher than during before integration. You know what I'm saying? The drug problems that plagued our community back then still plague us today. Our schools are underperforming. We have teachers that don't care about our students, and that's because all the good teachers went to better schools than where we were paying them. You know what I'm saying? These are the issues that plague the black community today. These are the issues that the pastors are not addressing in their pulpits. These are the issues that our congressmen and our black leaders are not addressing in their soapboxes. They're not addressing. And Louis Farrakhan ain't saying nothing about it. None of these other leaders are saying anything. None of these politicians that we elect aren't saying anything. They don't care. But these are the real issues that we deal with. And by the way, I'll close with this thought. For all y'all that are quick to say about to use the separation of church and state thing, first of all, that would only work if the state wasn't created by the church. You have to read your history. Those of y'all who use that separation of church and state thing obviously don't know your history. What was the whole purpose of the Pilgrims leaving England in the first damn place? Read your history. The whole purpose was because that England was basically run by a state-run church, which was the Church of England. There was one church. That was it. And the people that left England and other places left because of that very thing. They came to this country to create an environment where they were free to worship God, free from the influence of the king, free from the influence of the monarchy. And here's the point. To further prove your point, let me break it down to you even further. When Rosa Parks made her decision not to give up her seat to a white man in 1954, she went to jail, and they were organizing a boycott. Who do you think helped organize it? It was the preachers that organized it, led by then the late Martin Luther King Jr. When they were doing the Freedom Riders, who do you think was organizing that? It was the church that organized it. When they organized the March on Washington, when they organized the March in Selma, the March in Montgomery, who do you think organized it? Do you think the church organized this? With the course, other organizations were built off of this. The NAACP, the Student Leadership Committee, all these other organizations were built off the church. Even when the Brown versus the Board of Education came in, it was the black church that helped to bring a young Thurgood Marshall into the fray. So you can't use that separation of church and state excuse, because it was the church that helped the black church in particular, that helped bring into integration in the first place. It was the church that convinced Martin Luther King to go see Lyndon Baines Johnson and John F. Kennedy to produce these things in the first place. So you can't separate the church from the state because they're both integrated. But the point I'm making in all this is this. My people, we got to go back to look at the man in the mirror. As the late Michael Joseph Jackson would say, we need to look at the man in the mirror. Because it's so quick to point the finger at Donald Trump. It's so quick to point the finger at Congress. It's so quick to point the finger at politicians. But the truth of the matter is, the fault is ours. It's our own fault that we're not advancing. It's our own fault that we're behind. It's our own fault that we're not where we need to be as a people, in political wise, financial wise, spiritual wise, or any other wise. And the moment we recognize that and quit blaming everybody else, we're going to be a better people. The fault's not with Donald Trump. The fault's not with racist people. The fault's not with segregation, slavery, or anything else. Before integration, We worked together, stuck together, helped each other, protected one another. I'm going to tell you, there was a time when I was growing up, seriously, when if you were out there as a kid, you acted a fool, any adult within range of you could give you a whooping. And then once your parents found out, you going to get another whooping on top of that. You going to get at least at the minimum 2 whoopings the same day for the very same thing. So the kids in our community, we were on our P's and Q's because we were being watched. What happened to that? What happened to all that? We need to go back to that. We need to go back to that so our kids won't quickly run to gangs, to prostitution, to other things. We got to love each other, guys. We got to love and respect one another. That's the only way our communities will be better. And I pray that we'll get this message. And don't look at it for what I'm saying, but look at it for the gist of what it is. And that we could be better people in the process. That we could be people of relevance and people of dignity and people of honor again. Because right now, we could fall off the face of the damn earth and nobody would even care. Because we don't care. You know what I'm saying? Let that thought sink in your mind as I close it out. Big Mel here. I'm out. Peace.